I remember the exact moment everything went wrong. It was late, just past midnight, when I first found myself navigating the dark web. It wasn't anything I had planned. I'd heard about it in passing from friends who were into more unconventional online activities. They joke about it, hinting at the bizarre corners of the internet where laws didn't seem to exist. It was supposed to be just another curiosity, that ID scratch. Little did I know, I was stepping into something much darker. It started innocently enough. I was browsing on the surface web, scrolling through Reddit, when I saw a post that caught my eye. The title read, "Ever wondered what's really on the dark web? You won't believe what I found." My curiosity was piqued. I clicked. The post didn't give much information, just a few vague comments from people claiming they had seen things they couldn't unsee. But there was a link to a guide on how to access the dark web. It seemed legit enough. The process was simple. Download a browser called Tor, follow a few instructions, and you'd have access to the deepest, most forbidden corners of the internet. It seemed almost like a rite of passage, something that everyone said was dangerous but never really showed the consequences of. I didn't hesitate. I downloaded Tor, set it up in less than 10 minutes, and found myself staring at a page that, frankly, looked like a bad version of Google. But the things it promised, I could feel my heart rate pick up. Uncensored news, hidden services, people for sale. The words flickered on the screen, but I couldn't pull my eyes away. But the real draw was something else. The infamous marketplace. The one you hear rumors about. The one where anything and everything could be bought, sold, and traded. I had to see it for myself. So I clicked. It was like entering another world. The page was dark, like something from a horror movie. Red text on a black background, listings that made no sense at first glance. Then, slowly, I started to understand. Weapons, drugs, fake IDs. But there was something else there, too. A specific section labeled Private Requests. Curiosity gnawed at me. What could be so private? One listing stood out. The title simply read, "Custom Requests. Meet your deepest desires." I clicked it. The description was minimal. Whatever you want, we can provide. No questions asked. And that's when I felt it. The unsettling sensation that I just opened a door that would never be able to close again. It didn't take long for the website to consume me. At first, I convinced myself that I was just exploring, that it was all just digital curiosity, harmless even. But as I scrolled through the listings, something about the whole experience started to feel wrong. The deeper I went, the darker it got. The descriptions became more unsettling. Human trafficking, hitmen for hire, and then there were those videos. I wasn't sure if I was ready to witness what I was seeing, but I couldn't pull away. It was like an addiction forming in the pit of my stomach. The more I clicked, the more I saw sickening, grotesque things that I couldn't even begin to comprehend. Videos of people in distress, muted pleas for help, and a strange sense of voyeurism took hold of me. I tried to shake it off, to close the page and go back to my normal life, but it was too late. I had entered a world that couldn't be unseen. And then, something bizarre happened. I received a message. The notification came through my Tor browser as a simple ping. "We see you." I froze. I hadn't clicked on any ads. I hadn't interacted with anyone, not intentionally. This was a personal message. But from whom? The message continued. "You've been watching, but you haven't been paying attention." It was cryptic. Was it someone who knew I was on the site? Someone who had been watching me? I couldn't process it. I clicked on the message, my heart pounding in my chest. A file attached itself to the message, an innocuous-looking text file. open_me.txt. I hesitated for a moment, but then curiosity won. I opened the file. It was a series of pictures. At first, it seemed harmless, just blurry, grainy images of a man in a dark room. But as I scrolled further, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. The man in the pictures was me. A photo of me sitting in my living room, another of me walking down the street earlier that day, and a close-up of my face while I was looking at my computer screen. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone was watching me. and they knew exactly what I was doing. They knew that I was on the dark web. I could almost hear the blood rushing in my ears as panic set in. The file ended with a single message. "We've been watching, and now you're ours." Before I could even react, my screen went black. My heart was pounding in my chest. The room felt like it was closing in around me. I stared at the dark screen, unable to make sense of what had just happened. I tried to turn my computer back on, but it wouldn't respond. The silence was deafening. I was alone, except I wasn't. Whoever sent that message, whoever was watching me, they knew where I lived. They knew everything about me. I tried to convince myself that it was just some twisted prank, that there was no real threat. But the sickening feeling in my stomach told me otherwise. I could feel eyes on me, like a predator closing in. I stood up from my desk, pacing back and forth, trying to think of something, anything, that could explain what was happening. That's when I noticed the faint sound. It was coming from outside my apartment. A soft tap, 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 like someone knocking at the door, but not quite. More like scratching. Stopped, then started again. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled. My thoughts raced. I grabbed my phone and checked the security cameras I had set up around my apartment building. The footage was live, but what I saw made my blood run cold. The camera near the front entrance was blurry, but there, in the corner of the screen, I could see a figure standing under the dim light. They were just standing there, motionless, staring at the door. I didn't know what to do. My breath was shallow, my hands trembling. It was like time had stopped. I had to get out of there, but I couldn't. I didn't even know if I was in danger. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I scrambled to shut off my computer, hoping that maybe, just maybe, it would stop whatever was happening. But it didn't. The doorbell rang, loud and insistent. I froze, not sure whether to answer or run. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I slowly approached the door, trying to peer through the peephole. But there was nothing. No one there. But something was wrong. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. And then my phone buzzed. It was a message, not from anyone I knew, but from an unknown number. It was a simple text. "We told you we were watching. Time to meet us." I slammed the phone down, panicking, looking around for an escape. But as I turned toward the window, I saw it. A reflection of a figure standing in the shadows, just outside my building. Watching, I felt the walls close in on me. I wasn't alone. I wasn't safe. I didn't think. I just reacted. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get out before whatever was on the other side of that door found its way in. But my legs were frozen. Every fiber of my being was paralyzed with fear. The reflection in the window was unmistakable. Someone was standing there, just out of sight, waiting. I didn't know how they got there or how they'd found me, but the terrifying truth had settled deep in my bones. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone had been tracking me, studying me, and now they were here to collect. I grabbed the nearest object, my kitchen knife, and gripped it tightly. Felt useless in my hand, but it was all I had. I moved towards the door slowly, careful not to make a sound, as if the slightest noise might alert whoever was on the other side that I knew they were there. The doorbell rang again, more urgent this time. I flinched, my pulse quickening. I had to open it. I had no choice. I knew they would eventually force their way in. But as I reached for the doorknob, something strange happened. The door opened slightly on its own. Just a crack. I didn't open it. I hadn't touched the knob, yet the door creaked open, as if someone on the other side had already begun to unlock it. The light from the hallway outside seeped in, casting long shadows across my room. It was like they knew exactly how much time I had left. The voice came then, calm and cold. I almost didn't hear it at first, but it cut through the silence like a blade. "We told you. It's too late now." It was muffled, as if spoken through a wall or some distance away, but unmistakably clear. I felt my blood run cold as I backed away from the door, my mind racing. Should I try to escape? Should I barricade myself somewhere? But before I could even consider it, I heard a loud thud at the door. Then another, and another. Someone was pounding on it. The door rattled violently, shaking under the weight of their assault. I felt the pressure build. The walls around me seemed to close in even tighter. It felt like my own heart was beating against my chest, louder than the pounding at the door. I could hear them whispering now, multiple voices just outside. They were speaking to each other, but their words were too jumbled to make out. All I could hear were a few chilling fragments. "He's here. Get him. He's ours." I didn't know who they were, but I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer in control. I wasn't the one pulling the strings. I had become a puppet, a mere object of their sick game. Suddenly, the door burst open. I didn't hesitate. My legs finally found their strength, and I ran. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. My heart was thundering in my ears as I bolted down the hallway of my apartment building, adrenaline fueling every step. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that staying put would mean certain death. Whatever was behind me wasn't just after my computer anymore. It wanted me. I slammed into the stairwell door, nearly breaking it off the hinges as I pushed it open and began rushing down the stairs. The building was eerily quiet now, like the calm before a storm. I could feel the presence of someone or something closing in. Then I heard it, the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoing from above. They were following me. I tried to push myself harder, faster, but my legs felt like lead. My lungs burned. The panic was overwhelming. I didn't have much time. I had to get out. The floor beneath me groaned. It sounded like something or someone had shifted on the stairs above me. The footsteps stopped. Then, just as quickly as it began, the silence returned. A feeling crawled up my spine. Something wasn't right. I reached the ground floor and swung open the door to the lobby. I was almost there. The front exit was just ahead. But when I reached it, the door wouldn't budge. It was locked. I yanked at the handle, desperate. My breath came in ragged gasps as I frantically tried to get out. The hairs on my neck stood on end. I could feel it. They were getting closer. They knew I was trapped. Then, the whisper came again, this time from behind me, soft and chilling. "You can't escape." I spun around, the knife still clutched tightly in my hand, but I saw nothing. No one. But then I noticed it, the elevator, standing at the far end of the lobby. The doors were slightly ajar, just enough to see the faint reflection of light inside. I don't know why, but something about it called to me. It felt like a trap, but it also felt like my only option. I sprinted toward it, throwing myself into the small space, just as I heard footsteps again. I pressed the button to close the doors, my pulse racing as they began to slide shut. But at the last second, a hand reached through, blocking them. I screamed, trying to push the doors open again, but it was too late. The hand gripped the edge with unnatural strength, forcing the doors back open. And then, the thing that had been hunting me stepped into the elevator. It was a man, or something that looked like one. He was dressed in black, a dark hood obscuring his face, but I could feel his eyes on me, piercing through the shadow. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared at me, and I realized then that it wasn't just one person after me. It was an entire network, a group of people who'd been watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. I took a step back, clutching the knife, but it felt laughable. What was I going to do with a kitchen knife against this? The elevator doors slid shut completely. The man didn't move an inch. And then, just as the elevator began its descent, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, heart hammering, hands trembling, and saw the message flash across the screen. "You can't run. You can't hide. You belong to us now." I looked up at the man in the elevator with me, and finally he spoke. "Welcome to the real dark web." The elevator descended, the heavy, oppressive silence between us unbearable. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. I wanted to scream, to fight, but it felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The walls of the elevator felt too close, the air too thick, suffocating. I gripped the knife tighter, but I didn't even know if it would make a difference. The man in front of me remained completely still, his dark hood hiding his face. The only thing visible was the glint of his eyes, Cold, emotionless, and predatory. I had seen those eyes before, flickering behind the messages on my screen, behind the videos, behind everything that had led me to this moment. The elevator stopped, and the doors opened to a dimly lit hallway. It was different from the rest of the building, sterile and cold. No signs of life, just a hallway that seemed to stretch on forever. "This way," he said, his voice low, like a predator coaxing its prey. I didn't have a choice. I followed, my heart hammering in my chest, my every step an echo in the silence. The fear that clutched at my throat was suffocating, but I knew one thing for sure. This was no longer a game. This was real. We came to a large metal door. The man opened it without hesitation, stepping inside. As I followed, I saw a room that looked almost clinical. Bright lights overhead, monitors lining the walls, and in the center of the room, what could only be described as a command center. The room was alive with the soft hum of technology, buzzing with activity. But what truly froze me was the people. There were several of them, all sitting in front of computers, their faces hidden behind screens. They weren't paying attention to me. They were focused on their work. And then, I saw the screens they were monitoring. Videos of other people like me. They were tracking us, watching us, recording our every move. It wasn't just some underground marketplace. It was a whole operation. A network of people who exploited, tortured, and hunted others for sport. The man turned to face me, stepping closer, and finally pulled back his hood. His face was hard, sharp features, but it was the scars that stood out. Deep, ugly marks as if he had been through hell and come back. "You didn't think it was just about the money, did you?" he said, his voice steady, devoid of any empathy. "This is bigger than you think. People like you, they come looking, searching for something they shouldn't. And we give it to them." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what was happening. But I understood enough to know that I had just entered the heart of something unspeakable, something far darker than I had ever imagined. As the man took another step forward, his hand went to a small control panel on the wall. He pressed a button, and instantly, the screens around the room flickered, showing me my face, my home, my every move. "You were just a curiosity," he said coldly. "But now you're part of something bigger. You're part of the hunt." Before I could react, the man reached out and grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the center of the room. The monitors changed again, showing a countdown, numbers flashing on the screen. "Welcome to the final game," he whispered, and just like that, the room plunged into darkness. I don't know how long I was trapped in that dark place. What I do know is that I managed to escape, not by fighting, not by outrunning them, but by doing the one thing I never thought I'd have to do. I became one of them. The dark web is real. And if you ever wonder if you're safe, if you think you're just curious or bold enough to peek into its depths, I'm here to tell you this: don't. Because once they see you, once they know you're watching, they will always find you. And you will never, ever be free again. The last thing I remember is my phone buzzing, a message popping up on the screen. "Welcome to the family." That was the last time I saw daylight.